2023, video games left, right, and center. I played so many games this year, and not a whole lot of it was new stuff. I was mostly catching up on some backlog titles from my ever-growing list, but I doubled the amount of games I played in 2022 because of this, which is crazy, but I've barely scratched the surface of games I still want to play. I had my eyes on a couple RPGs, the likes of Persona 5, Final Fantasy VIII, Octopath Traveler, and a bunch more, but RPGs can be big time commitments. I dipped my toes into Persona 5, and it's okay so far. Haven't really gotten into the meat of it yet since I'm about 3 or 4 hours in, but next year I want to start chipping away at the many RPGs I've been itching to check out because frankly, a lot has happened this year. I played some of the obvious AAA hits. RE4 Remake is undoubtedly fantastic, such an incredibly good remake of an already great game. I'm not gonna act like I'm a huge Resident Evil buff, but the more I play, the more I'm finally getting it. Speaking of shooters, there's also Metroid Prime Remastered, which got me interested in the larger Metroid series. Sucks to say I didn't like Prime as much as I was hoping to. It has its moments for sure, but the backtracking is the worst part of the game by far. Visually though, the game is stunning. A+ job by the team. Like, this is one of my favorite Switch games graphically speaking. And how could I forget about Tears of the Kingdom? A lot of people have been acting like there's this huge switch up going on with the game, but ever since release I feel like I was seeing a hinge of negativity surrounding it. Personally, I still love this game far more than Breath of the Wild because it hooked me in so much. I was going out of my way to explore the extra nooks and crannies, doing a bunch of side quests, and having an overall great time, but I can't lie and say it's as innovative as it was made out to be. I think it's just the nature of open world sequels, but Tears of the Kingdom would be a much better game if Breath of the Wild didn't already exist. There are a lot of cool additions. The twist on new abilities like fusion are super technically impressive, but after the honeymoon phase, I have to admit, fusion is very situational. It's cool at first getting to experiment with fusing all these different items to your weapons and seeing the unique attributes, but in most cases you'll use the same few weapon fusions that work the best for you. Same goes for the Zonai builds you can make. Don't get me wrong, some of the things people have made are very funny and I'm glad it's even a feature, but most experimentation with these builds for me has ended in frustration, so I gravitated again towards what I knew would work best because that's all you really need for the game. I wish the game pushed you to use fusion in some more creative ways because there's so much potential for unique puzzles or expansions on some of the ideas we've already seen. The closest we really get to this, I feel like, are some of the shrines which you can easily cheese with the rewind ability. I also wish the dungeons were better. I can't speak on the comparison to the Divine Beasts because I honestly don't remember them, but I was pretty underwhelmed with all of the dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom. In most cases, the prerequisite quests were better than the dungeons themselves, but even then, that's not saying much. And to address the elephant in the room, another big criticism thrown at Tears of the Kingdom is, of course, the reuse of Hyrule's map from Breath of the Wild. Now, I can sort of see both sides of this argument, because yeah, there isn't that much that really feels new about Hyrule. Here and there you'll notice some differences, like some huge holes leading down to the depths, debris from the sky, but this is still the Hyrule you knew from before, and not a whole lot about it will feel unique. I didn't mind it as much as I thought I would because honestly I don't remember much about Hyrule, but I can perfectly understand why people were against this. At the same time though, what did you expect to happen? When the sequel to Breath of the Wild was announced, did you think they would design a brand new map to explore? The story of Breath of the Wild is so ingrained in Hyrule that I feel like you can't just take these characters and throw them into an entirely different setting, especially after how Breath of the Wild ended. However, I will agree that the new additions to the map feel very half-baked. To put it lightly, I was hyped to explore the sky because the trailers made it look like a huge part of the game. The opening Sky Island was super fun too, and then the rest just kinda sucks. Look, I would have been perfectly fine with the depths being cut out of the game if it meant more time could have been spent on designing more sky islands, because these are just so lame. There's like 2 or 3 good islands, but the rest are spread apart so far, and when you do get to them, they're just some small disconnected land masses that have very little going on. It sucks because there's a lot about Tears of the Kingdom that I love, but when you're looking at it as a sequel, it's hard not to pick apart all the new content because in a game with so much being reused, a big spotlight is put on that new content. I'm honestly afraid for the next Zelda game, because with how well Tears of the Kingdom has been selling, there's no way in hell Nintendo is going back to the traditional formula that so many want them to. I had a lot of fun with Tears of the Kingdom despite the issues I've brought up, but I'm not sure I'll be willing to give that same chance to whatever's next if it's just more of the same, because Tears of the Kingdom feels too much like a mere expansion on the systems and mechanics of Breath of the Wild, which even at that, it doesn't really succeed. Anyway, other games did in fact release this year. Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe was a delightful romp through a very nostalgic childhood game of mine. I wasn't sure how I'd feel revisiting it, but I was pleasantly surprised with how well Return to Dreamland holds up. It is a huge missed opportunity for them to have not included online multiplayer though. This game would have gone crazy if it did. I enjoyed it a lot on my own though, and loved the new visuals. I know people are iffy on the character outlines, but I just love how stylized it all looks, and the backgrounds are just gorgeous. There's a bit of new content as well with Magolor's extra campaign. This mode is a refreshing switch up that takes the classic formula and turns it into somewhat of a score attack speedrun game, and let me tell you, it is super satisfying to rack up huge combos and platinum every level. Progression in this mode is great as well thanks to all of Magolor's abilities, which are slowly unlocked and upgradable. It's a short campaign, but it changes enough from the core experience, setting itself apart, giving you a really cool finale and leaving me begging for more, even though I know it in my heart that it'll never happen. As mixed as I can get on Kirby, I can't just lie and say I don't still love this series. It's hard not to, given just how great of treatment Kirby is given. Like, just look at how many Kirby games have been released or re-released on Switch. This dude has taken over. It is insane. Later, we got more Pikmin content with the Pikmin 1 and 2 collection, and 4 finally releasing after a grueling decade-long wait. Finally, every Pikmin game that matters is on Switch, and man does it feel great. Pikmin is one of the most addictive, replayable series of games I have ever touched. They're not super fantastically amazing as some will have you believe, but they're fun, simple games that I will always come back to as a comfort game. I didn't like 4 as much as the others, although I've made a full video on that topic that you can go watch instead of listening to me ramble about it all over again. There have been some DLC rumors surrounding Pikmin 4, and a proper multiplayer update apparently, though I don't see it happening honestly. I'd love to be wrong though, as long as my funny little Bulbman get a mention or an appearance. Please, just give me anything at all. I am so desperate for my funny little guy to come back. Nintendo, I will never forgive you for this if you don't give me my Bulbman again. I just hope you know that. Oh yeah, speaking of rumors, a while back news was going around about the next Nintendo console, which was pretty exciting if also not really incredibly unrealistic. Lots of people were claiming that Nintendo had been showcasing an enhanced version of Breath of the Wild to developers at Gamescom, and reports were also going out about a Final Fantasy VII remake port that's on par with the PS5 version, and all of this sounds great, fantastic really, but I always have to remind myself of two little things. Number one, Nintendo Twitter's favorite thing to do for the past 2 to 3 years was spreading the Switch Pro rumor of the week. You know the ones, the 4K resolution, 120 billion FPS, and there was also that one time people read way too deep into a GameStop ad thinking a new Nintendo Switch was leaked by accident. Either people were really desperate, gullible, or a mix of both. While I would love to believe that Nintendo will finally step up their hardware game, they don't exactly have a great track record of it. The Wii, which came in 2006, was less powerful than the Xbox, which came 5 years before it. Now obviously, the specs weren't everything because it didn't stop the Wii from selling 70 million more units over the Xbox. Why exactly? Clever marketing and cheap pricing compared to its competitors thanks to the aforementioned low-end specs. When we're talking introductory prices, with a couple of exceptions, Nintendo has almost always been the most approachable, and while they do have to sacrifice some graphical fidelity, they make up for it with countless quality titles that people still come back to and fondly remember years down the line. All of this to say, I don't see the next Nintendo console changing this because it's always been an integral part of their business strategy to make their consoles the most approachable and reach the widest audience. Anyway, personally, I think a lot of Switch games look great as is, like Luigi's Mansion 3, Mario Odyssey, Tears of Your Mom, Splatoon, Kirby, ARMS, Super Mario RPG, the list goes on. Third-party games can get iffy results depending upon who's porting. I know I've heard the modern Doom games have good Switch ports, but then you have others that aren't so lucky. And then you also have to deal with the cartridge situation on Switch. I don't mind cartridges, but some studios are so cheap that they'd rather have you download half the game than shell out a little extra money for cartridges with more storage space. Capcom Capcom is going on my list for this because I got Mega Man X Legacy Collection 1 and 2 as a gift, only to figure out later that not only does the second game not come on the cartridge, they just give you a download code for the second game, so if you want to lend the game to a friend or family member, then whoopsies, I guess you're out of luck. I have a lot of other little gripes with the Switch, but that's one thing I hope gets fixed with the next console. It's either that or I'm gonna get a PS5. Nonetheless, I wouldn't expect a Switch follow-up or anything of that caliber until at least 2025, because the Switch still has a couple more games before it's through. Outside of AAA titles, I played a lot of games in the indie sphere this year, some great, some not, and some others that are just okay. I don't tend to closely follow many developers, but ever since a little game called Blazing Dynamo's prototype demo, I've had a change of heart. Developer Ritz is known for their stylish 3D platformers and game jam experiments that look sick as hell and feel just as good to play. I highly recommend checking out their itch page. There's some fun stuff up there, and if you like what you see there, then what I'm about to talk about might pique your interest. Yes, I'm talking about Pseudo Regalia. Originally conceived as an entry for Metroidvania Month 19 Jam, it was received so well that it not only won the jam, but got a content expanded release a few months down the line. You want a cool platformer with sick movement and clever level design? Pseudo Regalia's got you. The Metroidvania twist had me a little skeptical, but it's so addictive stumbling upon a new area and going down each path, finding the little nooks and crannies and noticing some spots that aren't so easy to reach and jotting them down to revisit later when you've got some more abilities. When I'm playing a Metroid game, 100% completion isn't in my sights, but the kicker that makes Pseudo Regalia feel different for me is the movement. I love some versatile movesets, and you've got plenty under your belt here. I'm not always sure if I'm completing a challenge in the intended manner, but sometimes cheesing it is part of the fun. I like that the game gives you the freedom to figure out what you want to clear and how you want to clear a challenge, since after the brief tutorial it lets you run off anywhere you want and collect the early abilities in whatever order you like. The more you get, the more your moveset expands and allows you to pull off some whack shenanigans that you couldn't before. It's a super satisfying, addictive gameplay loop that hooked me from start to finish, and whether you're a fan of Metroidvanias or platformers alike, I would highly recommend giving Pseudo Regalia a look. Kudos to the team, please play this game, it's really fun. Unsighted is a gem of a game that surprised me quite a bit. After some mixed thoughts on its demo, I thought it wouldn't be my cup of tea, yet I still had something in the back of my head nagging at me to give it a fair chance, and after a long time of putting it off, I'm very glad that I did finally play it. Unsighted is an open world game with heart, and I don't say that lightly as I myself am pretty sick of open world titles. What helps set Unsighted apart are a few key factors. We follow Alma, who wakes up with a classic case of amnesia, but later you learn that you and your allies are automatons powered by a resource known as anima. Anima was previously provided by a meteor which the humans sealed away in an attempt to control and neutralize the automatons. As such, anima is much more difficult to come by, which means the lives of all automatons are limited, and when their timer runs thin, they turn into an unsighted monster. However, you can find meteor dust spread around the map which can increase your or other characters' timers. You'll come across a lot of automatons throughout your journey, so whether you use the meteor dust on yourself or the automatons around you is vital. Some characters will even reward you with special items once you've given them enough meteor dust, so while it is easy to prioritize the select few in the village, I still found myself caring a whole lot more for these characters, knowing that eventually they would die, but that I have the ability to prolong their life. Of course, you can play the game with the timers off, but I feel like the game would lose a little something without them. Unsighted feels like a mixture of elements from other games fine-tuned to make for one of the most unique games I've played all year. The combat, while fairly simple, works well with the exploration and puzzle elements, and it never feels like they're clashing. It's not an incredibly easy game either. I admit I'm not the best at hack and slash games, but this game can throw a lot at you, testing your focus and your strategic timing of parrying and dodging. You're given a pretty good variety of options to build your own playstyle with the chip system, allowing you to attach chips that give you a variety of stat buffs from attack to defense, health, so you can be a glass cannon if you're confident enough, or maybe you're better suited for a speedier playstyle. I haven't finished the game yet, so I can't tell if it'll get too crazy deep. I don't expect it, but I do love the customization. I do think the puzzle elements aren't as strong. There are some areas that had me sitting there thinking, but a lot of the early puzzles consist of basic block pushing. The caves had some pretty neat minecart puzzles, though I still have my worries that the puzzles will get tiresome in the late game. Because of this, I don't think it's entirely fair of me to give the game a glowing recommendation just yet, but from what I have played, I'd say at least give it a look, try out the demo and see what you think, because I was surprised with what I found, and who knows, maybe you will too. You can even get a little dog companion. That's pretty cool. I played a bunch of multiplayer games this year. I don't have a ton to say about them, but they're worth a mention. Power Wash Simulator was the most surprising to me. It really doesn't sound appealing, but I don't know, man. This game is really fun to wind down with. It's the perfect kind of game to play with friends while having the most chill Discord calls. There's also Core Keeper, not a huge survival game guy, but about once every year I can have a pretty good Minecraft survival itch, and boy did this game scratch it. At first I thought it was kind of mediocre, but the more I got into it, the more it felt like this really fun middle ground between Minecraft and Terraria, though leaning more on the Terraria end of similarities, boasting a ton of unique bosses, NPCs who can join your base, a ton of armor and weapon sets, a cool skill tree to grind out on the side, and even pets you can train. Grinding this game out was some of the most fun I've had of a multiplayer game in a long time, particularly a survival game. The biomes are fun and have some little secrets to decipher here and there, even though I did kinda go insane looking for the meadow that one time. It was not fun. My favorite biome as of the current update has got to be the Sunken Sea with its host of dungeon-like city temples, and while not exclusive to this biome, I did find a lot of Shimmering Frontiers sub-biomes which can house these really fun arena challenges that a group of us just grinded out. I cannot wait for the next update because I am so ready to grind this game out again. Please do get this game with a couple friends and give it a shot, because if you like Terraria or Minecraft any bit, you'll enjoy this one a lot. It's very different, but it's a really great time. Portal 2 was another game I played this year, not the main campaign, but the multiplayer. Portal 2 multiplayer is so unintentionally funny thanks to the most horrendous in-game mic I have ever heard. You could plug in the best microphone money can buy, and Portal 2's mic processor will churn out the most disgusting audio to ever disgrace your ears. It elevated the experience from a 7 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10 hearing my friend blast Hitman by Kevin McLeod through SoundPad while I was trying to figure out how to regroup with him in this one stupid level. Before I close out the video, I'd like to dedicate a quickfire segment to some of the games I've played that I don't have as much to say about, starting with The Simpsons Hit and Run was one of those games I saw hailed as the holy grail of licensed games back in the day, and to be honest, I don't get it. It's cool getting to explore Springfield and see some classic locations up close, but the missions are really boring and repetitive. Each level of the game repeats the same few missions, but slightly different. I had to check out pretty early because even though I do love the show, I couldn't get into this game. Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare is a game I wouldn't even know existed if not for Switch Online. I love my random mediocre games no one cares about. It's an interesting game from a technical perspective, as it's a handheld version of a survival horror game by the same name, boasting a really cool pseudo 3D art style, but unfortunately, that's the only positive I have for it. Exploration can be really confusing and frustrating, as it's not always clear which direction will lead to a new area, so once I reached the mansion, I found myself bumbling around that house forever trying to find a single door. Aside from that, it's your pretty typical survival horror affair, dumbed down a lot for the hardware, what with your limited resources and occasional bosses, but there's one really funny thing about the combat. There are random encounters. Depending on RNG, this can lead to the final boss being legitimately impossible to beat because your only method of attacking is through firearms. No knife, no fists, nothing. And trust me, I learned this the hard way. Thankfully, I had a save state that wasn't too far back, but it was still really annoying having to redo all of what I had just done. I don't know why, but despite everything, I had a great time playing through it all in a single sitting. Something about the dialogue, the story, which would probably make more sense if I had played the console version, and however many times I got lost just made for a bizarre experience that I don't think any game could truly replicate quite as well as this game did. Iron Lung is another horror game I played that wasn't as scary as I was expecting, and more so, really nerve-wracking. Placed in a submarine where your only view of the outside is through a camera that's about as good as the McDonald's drive-thru speakers, you're sent into an ocean of blood to take pictures of the remains of the bizarre creatures that lurked beneath. This game was particularly stressful but fun in a weird cathartic way thanks to the navigation, which will involve some tight tunnels you have to weave around using an equally crappy map and cross-referencing your coordinates to safely progress. I wasn't sure what to expect. It's a very short experience, but it's definitely worth giving a look. I finally played Super Mario RPG through the remake, and I actually kinda get it now. Gotta be honest, I was expecting something really mediocre considering considering how much some people were hyping it up, but I'm really glad to be wrong. It's way shorter than I thought it would be. I remember watching my brothers play this game a lot as a kid, and it seemed like a good 15-20 hour game, but I was easily able to beat it in 2 days. That's gotta be in part due to the game being easier. There's a bunch of quality of life adjustments like the timing-based attack and dodge system giving you indicators of when to push the attack or block button, or how you can swap partners mid-battle. As far as Mario RPGs go, I'd still put it on the lower end. I love some Mario and Luigi games, but this was a fun change of pace, and I'm glad a new generation gets to experience it. Continuing the trend with the horror games is Choo Choo Charles, a game that blew up on Twitter due to the premise alone, and wouldn't you know it, the game is meh. You're placed on an open world island, tasked with upgrading your train and doing various other missions to prepare yourself for a final showdown with Charles the Demon Spider Train. Charles himself is a good if goofy as hell design. I kind of found it hard to take him seriously, and I'm not sure if the game wants you to either, considering all of the NPCs throughout the game are just as, if not more goofy. The gameplay is fine, mostly consisting of basic fetch quests across a very barren island. The only mission I could actually remember was this random Slender clone, but otherwise I think the game banks too much on the concept alone and not so much the finer details. I love upgrading the train and getting new weapons for it, but you're useless without it, which I understand is supposed to be a part of the fear, but if anything it feels like the game is limiting itself. It's certainly not bad, but pretty underwhelming. There were a bunch of other games I played this year too, but honestly, not a whole lot of them would be that interesting to talk about. I know I'm already at my limit with this video. I'm pretty afraid to look at the watch time dip after this goes up. I'm pretty excited for 2024 though, not for new stuff, but games I'm finally gonna sit down and grind out or finish after putting off for a bajillion years. I know this video was kind of a mess in its format, but I just wanted an excuse to ramble for a while about the games I know I'm not going to be making full videos on anytime soon. Next year I'm hoping to put out a bit more niche review content on some games a couple of you may or may not know about, and less topical nonsense like I've been uploading. I don't mind topical content, but I feel like I'm letting it limit my creativity, and it sort of hurts for me to look back on what I've made throughout the year and see a bunch of topical content while comparing to other channels around my size who are putting in a lot more effort than I feel like I have been. The imposter syndrome is just as strong as ever, but I'm trying not to let it hold me back, so hopefully I'm gonna make some more fun content next year. I also have a really big video planned for maybe not next year, but sometime this millennium. I don't know, we'll see. For now, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Also, I forgot the biggest news this year. Peter Griffin is in Fortnite. Holy crap!